Mr. President, thank you so much for being with me this morning. I know that your time is limited, and we appreciate you making the time to...
By the way, this is a detail that I forgot. His time is limited, ladies and gentlemen, so unbelievably limited that he's going to squeeze in this interview in between going to watch the UFC live. Because you know what you need when you're in the middle of a war? It's just a little bit of time out to relax and watch some more extreme violence up close. Don't worry about running the world. Don't worry about being accountable for the war. You're going to go and watch a couple of dudes punch each other in the face. What is up, everyone? It is Chewburger84 here for another episode of One Nerd All Things. Thank you to all of you who have been helping to grow this little channel. I'm now up to 26 YouTube subscribers. Look at me go, girlfriend. Look, really appreciate those of you who are subscribing, who are interacting, liking, commenting. And I would love if all of you would do exactly the same thing, but let me earn it first, ladies and gentlemen. Let me entertain you. Let me inform you. Let me make you giggle. Hopefully. Maybe. So, here we are again, ready to spin that record one more time, ladies and gentlemen, because we are very likely to have the war in Iran kick off, picking right back up where it was, but with some strange new twists. So why don't we do, I guess, the quickest summary recap of that I possibly can of what happened since the last time I covered this topic. So last week, Trump threatened to end the entire civilization of Iran, put a deadline, and basically said that if the Strait of Hormuz was not opened by the end of that deadline, that he would end the civilization of Iran, which the world took to either be a giant bluff, allowing Trump to taco, which is obviously Trump always chickens out, is the acronym, or was basically threatening the entire civilian population of a country. Now, a lot of people come out since and went, no, he didn't mean that. You know, Donald, he gets hyperbolic. You can't take him at his word. When he says A, he means B. When he zigs, he's actually zagging, and you just don't understand my boy Trump. Now, as it turns out, he was kind of bluffing. He basically went and announced on the internet that he had agreed to the pleading of the Prime Minister of Pakistan to facilitate some talks over a ceasefire in Islamabad over the weekend, and decide to send the two same dickhead real estate agents who messed everything up the first time and basically facilitated betrayal at the negotiating table twice already, but also now injecting the wild card of J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States of America. So they said, okay, we're going to build this framework based on the 10 points as a starting off point that Iran had provided, which Trump said is reasonable enough as a starting point. But one of those points was that there must be a cessation of the bombing of the Lebanese people by Israel. Now, Israel, as per usual, has injected themselves as a spoiler in these negotiations, and they went on the offensive the second that this ceasefire was announced and implemented the largest attacks on Lebanon so far in this war. That's how they bring about their side of peace. And they said, we didn't agree to jack. We didn't say that Lebanon was part of the conversation here. Go screw yourself, right? They're not part of the Iran thing. But hang on a minute. Aren't they part of the Iran thing, according to the logic here? Because didn't they say that Hezbollah is an Iran proxy? So they're kind of one and the same, and that we had to go to war on Iran because of Hezbollah. But if they are trying to declare peace with Iran, shouldn't that mean we're trying to negotiate peace with Hezbollah? So already we've started the bad faith part of the negotiations. They have basically continued to bomb the absolute crap and killed the largest amount of people in a multiple day period in Lebanon, which they can do because when they're not having the crap bombed out of them by Iran, they can obviously get up to a lot of mischief as they have for the last couple of years. So Iran, you would expect, may have responded in kind, but, you know, true to some form. And again, it's always hard to give credit to the Iranian regime, but they did hold some level of restraint. The only thing they did do, which is obviously not great for planet Earth, is immediately reclose the Strait of Hormuz and said, well, look, if you guys are going to act in bad faith, we had this agreement. You guys have walked that back. J.D. Vance very quickly walked it back as well, because obviously Bibi must have called Donnie and Donnie called J.D. and said, look, you know, no, actually, no, Lebanon was not part of this at all. So Iran said, okay, fine. Well, we'll stop the war part, but we're also going to back down one of the things we agreed to as well, which is we're going to reclose the Strait of Hormuz. Okay. Not great start to the negotiations. Now, right before the negotiations were about to start, Donny Boy sends 2 naval destroyers of the US military with a mission to go and demine the strait right up into the border of Iran's territorial waters. And so we're going to come up, and while there's a ceasefire, we're just going to clear out the strait of all the mines. That's all cool, right? Obviously not. So the reports go that Iran has sent over a bunch of drones and threatened these warships, who have then turned around, as they should, because, I mean, they're a genuine threat, as well as the hypersonics. Like, the closer you get into that narrow waterway, it is an immense threat to every sailor on that vessel, and it is an insane thing to do when peace is not on the table. 1, you don't know where the mines are. 2, you are openly defying, you're adding on to the negotiations and saying, well, no one actually asked or agreed to demining the strait, right? Iran said that they could provide safe passage for anyone that wants it around the mines if they ask for it. But again, this is point 2 for bad faith negotiations. Now, to also be fully transparent here and not just take one side, because that's never what I try and do here. Obviously, there was quite a while after the ceasefire was announced that Iran was still sending bombs or sending missiles over to Tel Aviv as well. Now, they said, look, this is kind of the challenge of having a sidewise leadership infrastructure, that it takes a little while for us to get the phone calls around to stop the bombing completely. But within a few hours of the ceasefire, they did finally cease. But you could argue that they also did breach the ceasefire agreement for a period of time, but have held up to their agreement, apart from obviously the Strait of Hormuz thing. Then we get to the negotiations themselves. JD Vance and everyone has walked away from the table basically saying no deal, which I guess no one's really surprised, because what the Americans wanted was 100% submission. They wanted them to fold on pretty much every point. They said, no, you can't have a nuclear program whatsoever. No, you can't have missiles. No, you can't have this. No, you can't have that. So it was never really going to pan out, because I don't think either side is in a position where they feel weaker than the other one. You know, Trump, I think, has backed himself into this corner where he truly believes, and is starting to buy his own BS, that America is winning this war, which objectively, from a military standpoint, sure they are. But the ability for Iran to inflict maximal financial damage on planet Earth remains in place. The IRGC remains firmly in place with the same ability to oppress the Iranian people, which is another stated objective of the Americans. So that's still there. And they still have all of their nuclear toys. So at the moment, you could argue that Iran has achieved more than the USA up until this point, because they now have a voice on the world stage. They've had people openly reaching out to negotiate with them. And ultimately, you've got this weird situation where neither of the sides involved in this are the good guys. But if you had to rate, like in most people's public opinion, who do you think is most at fault for where we are right now? Rank them 1, 2, 3, whether it be Iran, Israel, or the US. I would say most countries would say that Iran is probably at the bottom of that list, because it is very much America implementing their let's F around and find out what happens, right? They love this FAFO term, as if find out what America will do to you, when I think that ultimately they've been the ones that have found out so far in Iran. I thought we would not get a more unhinged plan from Donald Trump than the civilization post last week, which a lot of people interpreted as threatening a genocide, which is the way I would read it. Absolutely. I mean, Trump, you know, he can be hyperbolic, but I think he meant it. I think he was more than willing to bomb that civilian population and try and force the IRGC into subservience by murdering people. It was never going to work, but I have no doubt that he is capable of that based on what we've seen so far. But then, ladies and gentlemen, we get, as per usual, not a stately presidential address standing up in front of the world wearing a suit. We get him on his own platform, Truth Social, with this. So Donald J. Trump, Dump. Let's just call him Dump at this point. So there you have it. The meeting went well. Most points were agreed to, but the only point that really mattered, nuclear. Oh, so that's the thing. He's now saying that's the only thing, right? That's the only statement that matters. Nuclear is all I care about. Effective immediately, the United States Navy, the finest in the world, will begin the process of blockading any and all ships trying to enter or leave the Strait of Hormuz. So his plan to liberate the Strait of Hormuz, to allow oil to flow out into the world, is to block it himself? What the hell is this plan? Right? You have basically declared a soft economic world war against everyone on planet Earth that needs that oil, Australia included. Every ally that relies on that. What about the Gulf region? You've basically said to them, we're not going to allow your oil out of there either. Right? If someone made a deal and allowed these ships full of Gulf oil and they paid this tariff, which again is unreasonable, but at least it's more reasonable than what Trump is proposing here, saying that, okay, well, you can go out now, you've paid your fine, no problems, out you go. And then Trump's going to what, threaten to blow up the ship? Because he's not happy that the Iranians have found a way to make money of this, even though Trump himself has lowered the sanctions on Iran to allow oil to flow out, even though that he has allowed the Iranian oil to be purchased around the world and flow out since this conflict begun, giving them more of an income stream than they've had in decades, giving them more of an income potential for the long term than they've had ever. The biggest backfire in possibly American history is playing out right in front of us. And Trump's plan is to make this phenomenally worse and to take every ally that may be still partially in Trump's camp and say, you know what? F you. We're going to do it my way or no way. That's the America of today. That's the American leadership saying, screw every relationship that we have with any of you. If you're going to negotiate with Iran and enable your people to still have power, to still have fertilizer, to still have food, we can't have that. American prosperity is at risk. But I tell you what we will do, we'll open up American oil. So then you can still buy oil while we make billions of dollars. Because let's face it, when it comes to Donald Trump, that is what this is all really about. How can he make himself and his Epstein elites even richer? And at the same time, how can he complete the objectives of his little partner BB over there to make sure that they get as much land as possible? Welcome to the end game, ladies and gentlemen. Now look, one or two things is going to happen here, and I'll finish the statement in a minute. This is either going to lead to a massive taco because Trump's going to realize that this announcement is going to absolutely make the oil prices around the world fly higher than the Artemis 2 just did in the atmosphere. It is going to go absolutely ridiculous as soon as the markets open on Monday morning. Or is all of a sudden a bunch of magical bets that people did definitely not get information from Trump 15 seconds before the markets opened, and all of a sudden he tacos out and says, well, no, allies who agree to come and help out in the Gulf, they can actually have a free pass. We know that's what he's going to squeeze. Does he go full taco, or does he basically try and now strong arm the rest of NATO and every other nation to do what he wants? Otherwise, he's going to absolutely blast into orbit the oil prices on this planet. Everything will get worse. And bear in mind, oil price is not everything. To those of you watching from America, your prices and your inflation are going to boom as a result of what Trump is doing here. Probably worse than ever. Because I would imagine every country on earth is going to be incredibly pissed off in this statement. And I hope that they bring some sort of retaliatory economic measure against America so that you guys feel that pain too. But you're going to feel it way later than everyone else with Pakistan and Southeast Asia, where they're going to run out of oil. So they're going to have to be able to stop production. Their economies are going to get burned. Hospitals are going to go dark. Food is on the line. Famines can erupt. The impact of what Trump is threatening here. And don't get me wrong, I realize that there is a huge hypocrisy in what I'm saying in the sense that the Iranians were blockading as well, right? Both of them are pieces of shit for doing this. The difference is, however, that the Iranians were basically saying, our terms are very clear. We will still deal with you as long as you are not creating military action against us. A reasonable request. And then number two is, if we don't really like you at the moment because it kind of feels like you're still an American ally, then we're going to basically make you pay a toll to get out of the road. Your country can carry on. So prices will go up a little bit, but ultimately the world will carry on. And that's kind of where we were during the start of the ceasefire. Though we saw that world oil prices did temporarily dip. Here in Australia, we saw oil pricing at the pump go down quite a bit, and there was a little bit of hope. No one was truly happy with what had been created by America and Israel's joint venture into the region. But at the same time, we're like, well, at least there is a version of oil flowing out with some sort of reliability, but a toll that we're not happy with. And hopefully we can negotiate better terms to get ourselves a lower toll or maybe no toll at all as we go through diplomatic purposes. But no, Trump's realized that they can make money out of this now, and we can't possibly have that. Not when I could be making money, not when me and my Epstein class friends could be absolutely making money on this. We can't have that. No way, not on my watch. So now he's going to do it himself. But where does that go? Like, what happens if a NATO ship, which I know that he's basically torn up NATO already, and part of me feels like he's trying to test this as we speak. But ultimately, what if a NATO country or an ally of America passes through that strait carrying Gulf oil? Let's not even say Iranian oil. Let's say it's Kuwaiti, Saudi Arabian, UAE oil. They're coming through, right? So everyone wants this. The Gulf countries want that oil to get out of there. The Iranians want that oil to go out of there because they want their money. And the country the oil is going to, they absolutely want that oil. They pay their tariff. They get past the mines. The Iranian military says it's all fine. What is Trump's little dinghies gonna do? Are they gonna blow a ship out of the water? This is possibly the biggest bluff that this guy is ever going to have called. Because he is going to get presented with a choice that is he going to open fire on a British vessel? Is he going to open fire on an ally's vessel, sink it, and then trigger the NATO response against America? Well, no NATO, but let's say Europe, and I think any other reasonable country would see that action. That is the kind of spark, like a Franz Ferdinand moment, that the rest of the world basically goes, this is not on, man. It triggers NATO articles. Well, I don't know what we call NATO. Let's just call it TOE for now. Does it trigger these countries to have to declare war on America? And then all of a sudden now, the rest of the world is like, well, okay, this is actually not good. So then China is on the side of the TOE. Now it's China TOE. Now it's Russia. They're also going to be against America on this, and Iran. So you end up with basically a united world front against America because they declared war on the economy of this planet beyond what the Iranians have done. The difference is Iran was very clear about their terms. Trump at the moment is very unclear. He's just saying no one. But at the same time, saying that, well, you can buy your oil from us. Oil is one thing, but more things go through that Strait of Hormuz than that. Now, we're only talking about outgoing right now, by the way. What a lot of people struggle to forget, because the Western world, we do have a habit of only caring about ourselves. What goes into the Strait of Hormuz, ladies and gentlemen? Food, water for the Gulf states. Okay, they are not water independent. Yes, they have their desalination plants that are under a threat by Iran, and I hope that they never attack those, because that would be a horrendous war crime to do. But understand that the bulk of the food and the water from that region comes from outside the Strait of Hormuz. There is huge threats to the individual civilian population of that region, most of which are allies of the American Trump regime. For now, right? There are reports today that the UAE is reaching out to China, that they've sent a delegation going, hey, look, we may need to hedge here because it doesn't feel like the American thing's going to play out, especially after this announcement that it's going to blockade the whole strait. This is phenomenal, right? As someone who wants to do their absolute best to be friends with America, my God, you guys are making it hard for every ally right there to do it. It's ridiculous. So look, let's listen to the rest of this post anyway. At some point, we will reach an all being allowed to go in, all being allowed to go out basis, but Iran has not allowed that to happen by merely saying there may be a mine out there somewhere that nobody knows about but them. This is world extortion, he says. Well, what are you doing, Donnie? Isn't this the extreme version of that extortion, you piece of shit? And leaders of countries, especially the United States of America, will never be extorted. False statement, unless it's America doing the extortion. Have we forgotten your tariffs, bitch? Have we forgotten them? We certainly haven't in Australia. We remember because you put them on us. Then it was ruled to be illegal. So you owe us a massive tax return, dickhead. Then you slap another one on just because. Even after your country's ruled these tariffs to be illegal, you give yourself 6 months of tariffing your allies just because. How is that not extortion? All right, pay the tariffs or don't trade with my country. That's extortion. That's extortion, Donald. It's the same behavior when you do it. Why is it wrong when everyone else does it? But when you do it, it's fine. You hypocrite. This is world extortion, and leaders of countries will never be extorted. I've also instructed our Navy to seek and interdict every vessel in international waters that has paid a toll to Iran. That is so far beyond what Iran has done. And again, I don't agree with what they've done with the Strait of Hormuz, but they're saying anywhere on planet Earth, if you have a boat and you've paid a toll to Iran, they're coming for it. Now, we saw the US do this last year where they stole oil from Venezuela. They stole Russian oil that was on international waters and took it back to America. This might is right approach of America is going to lead to absolute ruin for the world economy, the American reputation, and ultimately the world order. Like, we're in absolute chaos. If he enacts any of this, and I don't think I've ever wanted him to taco more in my life than this one, because this one has the ability to spark everything. Because every convention ever agreed to would be broken if he enacts any of this. And I thought America was supposed to be the good guys. What the hell happened to your country, guys? What the hell happened to you that you allow this to happen? But more insanely, 39% of you in America agree that this guy is a good president and this is a good plan. All that does is show the rest of the world that you do not give a shit about us. Absolutely insane. Imagine that. I've instructed our Navy to seek and interdict every vessel in international waters that's paid a toll to Iran. No one who pays an illegal toll will have safe passage on the high seas. That breaks every maritime law on the fucking planet. We'll also begin destroying the mines the Iranians laid in the Straits. Any Iranian who fires at us or peaceful vessels will be blown to hell. Well, they've done that already. That part's not a surprise. Nothing new there. Iran knows better than anyone how to end this situation, which has already devastated their country. Their navy's gone. Their air force is gone. Their anti-aircraft and radar are useless. Is it, though? Their radar must be useless, but it looks very likely that China and Russia, theirs is working fine, and they're feeding intel to them. And their anti-aircraft is gone. Now, my memory is not fantastic, but it feels like a week ago, didn't you lose like $300 to $400 million worth of aircraft in Iran? Does that sound like an anti-aircraft capability that's been destroyed? Nasamash, right? Sure, Navy and Air Force, I'll pay that. You've done that. Congratulations. What have you achieved so far? Khomeini, and most spelled Khomeini wrong too, hilarious. And most of the leaders are dead, all because of their nuclear ambition. Again, no evidence they even had nukes in the first place. The blockade will begin shortly. Other countries will be involved within this blockade. I would love to know who's agreed to it so far, but I know that we're all about to see the pressure on all of our nations. I'm sure that they're going to come knocking on Australia's door, and we're going to have decisions made for our entire country by a bunch of elitist dickheads that run our country too. And I hope to God they make the right ones, because this is going to have an impact on the economy of our country, but also could have an impact on the lives of people in our country. Because if they decide to bow down to Donaldo Trump's extortion, blackmail, whatever you want to call this. No, not blackmail. Blackmail is what's being done to Trump. If they want to bow down to the extortion of Trump, and we are committed to then policing the Strait of Hormuz, we will be putting Australian lives at risk, our service personnel, and we can get drawn into this conflict that we shouldn't be. We should absolutely not be. But yet again, America and their actions and their selfish self-interest is looking to drag the entire planet down with them. Sorry, being unfair there. The American leadership. Most of you guys didn't do this. Well, at least not 60% of you. Iran will not be allowed to profit off this illegal act of extortion, but America can. Right? He didn't say that part, but in case you're not watching the video version, he said that Iran should not be allowed to profit from a legal act of extortion. But when America does it, it's not illegal because we make the rules. It's not illegal when America does it. We make the rules. Get on board. They want money, and more importantly, they want nuclear. Additionally, at an appropriate moment, we are fully locked and loaded, and our military will finish up the little that is left of Iran. President Donald J. Trump. Now, as of this moment of recording, the ceasefire is still in place. And Trump is basically saying, we're going to finish you off. So if Iran responds now and just basically says, okay, well, you said you're going to attack us, so we're just going to get in first, which is what America did, is what Israel did. They said, well, they were going to attack us first because Israel was going to attack them. So we just attack first to make sure that we were going to be, getting the better foot in the door. That's what Donald's doing now, right? The hypocrisy of the American and Israeli leadership is beyond insane. And look, I'd encourage you to have a look at a couple of Bibi's little press conferences in the last week as well. Have a look at the way that they threatened Spain. By the way, Spain wins my favorite country of the week, by the way. They had a TV show last night that basically encouraged the world to take a photo of themselves flipping the bird to Bibi Netanyahu and send it to all of his social media, which is actually pretty hilarious. I think that's such a fun retaliatory response. But then to do this, right, like they've done that, and then we have Israel coming out and threatening Spain, basically saying, well, you've dared to question the actions of the IDF and to theorize that we are the bad guys here is to basically declare war on this, so we're not going to guarantee your safety anymore either. Kind of paraphrasing here, but if you read the essence of it, if you criticize the IDF, you go on the enemies list. And then very shortly after that, Trump issues a statement saying they're going to tear up trade with Spain. You can't tell me that the link between these two guys is unbelievably unhealthy for you, America. Right? You can say that the comments like that are anti-Semitic, even though it is absolutely not. But you have to admit things here look incredibly sus between those two. So needless to say, there's a lot of questions happening right now because these posts have come out as they always do on the weekend. And again, I am still hoping that he will taco right before the markets open. Sure, a couple of his investor bros are going to make billions or trillions of dollars on the bets that they're placing right now on investor info. But if he doesn't, again, all market, going to go nuclear on Monday. So obviously a lot of questions are being asked. So he goes on to the national mouthpiece for America or for the Trump regime, which is basically Fox News. And what's her name? Maria Bartiromo or whatever her name is, had Trump call in over the phone. Again, what a pussy and a coward this guy is. Right? Any other president, if they were going to be this much of a douche, would at least go and stand up in front of the podium in the White House and whatever wing that is that they do that. I mean, let's be real. Melania Trump has spent more time presenting her intentions to the world from a wing of the White House compared to Trump. She went there and said, hey, look, I'm going to probably get accused of a lot of bad stuff for the next couple of days. I just want you to know that it wasn't me. Okay? Because there's going to be a storm coming there by the sounds of it. But at least she had the balls or whatever it is she's got to go out and do that. Trump does it via tweets or truth socials or over the phone to one of his girlfriends at Fox. Why don't we have a little bit of a listen to what was said in this conversation by Donaldo?
News for Iran much more than it's bad news for the United States of America.
Joining me now live on the telephone with the very latest is the nation's 45th and 47th President of the United States, President Donald J. Trump. Mr. President, thank you so much for being with me this morning. I know that your time is limited, and we appreciate you making the time to...
By the way, this is a detail that I forgot. His time is limited, ladies and gentlemen, so unbelievably limited that he's going to squeeze in this interview in between going to watch the UFC live. Because you know what you need when you're in the middle of a war? It's just a little bit of time out to relax and watch some more extreme violence up close. Don't worry about running the world. Don't worry about being accountable for the war. You're going to go and watch a couple of dudes punch each other in the face. Don't get me wrong, I do love the UFC. But my God, his time is limited. He's golfing. He's still golfing during this conflict. He's going to watch the UFC. And then there's even spots from Dana White basically saying that Trump asked him, hey, the White House UFC event, which I completely forgot was a thing, by the way, right? Why are the fights that I want not happening? Can you give him a call and ask him, why is he not going to fight at my house? And then Dana's like, well, that's a good question. So then basically adds things to the fight card at the White House that the UFC is going to be hosting. I still don't understand how this is happening. How do you just rent out a part of the White House to host a UFC event? Right? But this is the important thing to Trump right now because he's got so limited time. I can't do it. Got too much to do.
Explain all of this to our audience. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Maria.
Mr. President, can you explain to us what is going on right now with the blockade in the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, we're going to be blockading. It'll take a little while, but it'll be effective pretty soon. And we had meetings yesterday. They, as you said, lasted 21 hours. That was a long meeting. We had some very, very good representatives, as you know, JD and Steve and Jared.
Steve and Jared, America, how do you feel, honestly, about these two real estate dorks? One being a Nepo baby son-in-law of your president, who represents one of the largest conflicts of interest ever seen by an American president with his relationship with Jared Kushner. How do you honestly feel about these two? Like, name me something that they have achieved. And don't say the Abraham Accords, because those have been torn to shreds at this point. Name one thing they've done good. How are they representing you, the American people? How are they these God-level negotiators? They are real estate dorks who have plans to build resorts on the ashes of Gaza. That's who you sent.
So we were well represented, but we didn't get there on the important issue. They want to have nuclear weapons. They're not going to have nuclear weapons. I've been saying that for 30 years. I would never allow that to happen before I was in politics. And that country will not have nuclear weapons. Most countries shouldn't be allowed to have, but that country will not have.
Most countries should not be allowed to have, right? So America gets to decide the who does and the who doesn't because they have the most nuclear weapons, right? Most established nations have them at this point. Do I want Iran to have one? Not particularly. But I also don't think that Israel should have them. But everyone pretends that they don't, right? Except for the fact that multiple times there's been slip-ups by state media and state representatives from the US over the last month where they kind of had to admit that Israel does have nuclear weapons, including the leaks from the White House that suggested one of the reasons why Trump agreed to this war is that he was worried that if they didn't, that the way Israel was going to go after this nuclear equipment in Iran was to send a nuke to blow the bunkers up from space, basically. Insane. But it's up to America who gets nukes, right? But not even just nukes, like their ability to have a nuclear program. They're saying no nuclear program, right? Civilian nuclear power should be an option for every country on planet Earth because it is one of the only few viable, I don't want to use the word renewable because it's definitely not, but let's say possibly more bang for buck with the limited resources that we're going to have through non-renewables like oil into the future. Every country should be able to pursue that to a certain extent, below a certain level of enrichment. To say no nuclear options at all is a hard line that is applied to no one else on planet Earth. And again, they allowed so many evil regimes over the years to develop nuclear weapons. Why draw the line with Iran? Why is Iran the overwhelming exception? And we keep coming back to that same answer, don't we, folks? Is it actually America?
Nuclear weapons.
So, Mr. President, was that the red line there? Can you explain to us what went on in these talks? What did the United States ask of Iran, and how did they react?
Good question.
Well, they reacted. You know, it was very interesting. It started off weak. They came in like they had the cards, but they don't have the cards. Their army, their whole military is
They
obliterated.
got a lot of cards.
The whole place is obliterated. And, you know, as you know, levels of leaders are gone. They're literally gone. Khomeini's gone. The whole thing is gone. The whole place is
One
gone.
Khomeini's gone.
They have one thing that they can do. They can say, well, gee, we're going to put a mine someplace just a mine. We'll drop 1 mine, 2 mines, 10 mines. And that will, if you have a ship that costs $1 billion, you say, well, you know, I'd prefer not getting whacked by a mine, losing my ship or damaging it.
Very
badly,
possible to do.
at least. And so that's a little bit of a thing that they can do. That it's military might and military power don't do it, but, you know, it's extortion. And
for those of you not watching the video right now, I'm looking at this Fox footage where basically they've posted this map about where all of the nuclear infrastructure of Iran is. In a way, I'm assuming is supposed to lead the uneducated viewer who doesn't know more than the surface map in front of us, I guess all the nuclear capabilities that they have, let's say. So it's showing this map of like, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 nuclear sites with no definition of what that is. Is that power? Is it a launch from a missile? Oh my God, be terrified. They've got all the nukes, guys. Right? This map is, I guess there's accuracy to it, but it's also, I'd say intentionally misleading, you know, showing where their uranium mines are, their research reactors, and then obviously military sites, which at the moment I see one military site in Parchin. So are they telling us here that that's a nuclear military site? Is that what they're trying to say here? Yeah, I think there's a lot of dishonesty from this graphic.
They're extorting the world. You know, we don't get our oil from there. We have so much. And one thing you said is, I don't.
Again, that comment just shows that he doesn't care about the rest of the world. We're going to be fine. We got oil. We're fine. America's fine. Screw the planet. We're fine.
I don't know if anybody heard it well, but we have boats pouring up to the United States. They'll be filling them up, and they'll be leaving, and they're going to be packed with the best oil you can get, light, sweet crude.
He's doing a sales job.
The best oil that you can get. But so that's interesting, and it's great because we have a lot of oil. We don't get any. I mean, literally last year it was 1%. We did that as a favor. We don't need the Strait.
Yeah, congratulations,
but other countries
dickhead.
do. And I will tell you, while we're on the subject, we're very disappointed with NATO. We're very, very disappointed that they didn't come. Now they want to come and they want to help with the Strait, and it won't take long to clean it out. So we're going to clean out the Strait, and they'll be able to use the Strait in not too long a distance.
I can't say this enough. To simplify cleaning out the Strait with that methodology is underselling how many people are going to die in that process. Okay? They have hypersonic missiles. Name one boat on planet Earth that has a defense capability against a hypersonic missile. I can wait. They got mines. They've got the ability to have handheld rocket launchers from a beach. Do you think they can screen for just a dude, right, with a long-range handheld? Right, we've seen insane things from the footage in Ukraine and Russia about how fast small drones are able to penetrate far beyond their borders and overwhelm these advanced interceptor systems, right? At what, in some cases, multi-million dollars per missile in the case of the American and the Israeli infrastructure. Any boats that go in there are going to die. And if Trump didn't think that that was true, all of those multiple aircraft launch platforms, all of those naval frigates and destroyers that Trump has had parked over there for nearly 2 to 3 months at this point, he would have done it himself. There is a reason that America has not gone in there as yet, because even Trump, in the level of delusion and possible accusations of dementia after the test that he was bragging about passing yesterday during a live briefing in front of Marine One, talking about how, oh, I'd love to see AOC pass this test that I had to do today. And the details he gave is literally the standard dementia test, right? That's his big brag right now. It's, hey, I aced a test that says I've got mental decline. I don't think anyone else could do that, right? Why are they doing those tests? Did you volunteer for this? Are you worried about something for yourself? Crazy.
We had a very intensive negotiation, and toward the end it got very friendly, and we got just about every point we needed, except for the fact that they refused to give up their nuclear ambition. And that's the only point, frankly, to me. That was the most important point by far.
And I want to ask you about that, and I will get to NATO as well. But, Mr. President, you wrote on Truth Social this morning saying that we will begin the process of blockading any and all ships trying to enter or leave the Strait of Hormuz.
Is she actually going to hold him to account?
Am
I about to be impressed by a Fox News person?
Being allowed to go out basis. Right. So tell us what you're trying to accomplish with this blockade,
all in,
sir.
All out. Yep. It's called all in and all out. There'll be a time when we'll have them all come in and all come out, but it won't be a percentage. It won't be a friend of yours, like a country that's your ally or a country that's your friend. It's all or nothing.
Do we think that America is going to go one step further here, or Trump is going to go one step further here, and that when they do open it up, let's say that it goes all the way that Trump intends it to here, do you all of a sudden think that then he's going to leave a permanent naval infrastructure there to guarantee the safety of the region, but then charge the world, I don't know, a toll or a tariff? I really would not put it past them at this point. I mean, he's already trying to sell the American oil, but then if people just go, well, we kind of hate you now, so we want to try and buy it from these guys now that the strait is fully open and the war is over, and then all of a sudden he goes, well, hang on a minute. No, I don't want that. I want you to buy American oil. So if I can't get a piece of that, I'll get a piece of this. it would not shock me at all if that comes next. That the whole idea that's illegal, wrong, and extortion when Iran does it, then 6 months Donald Trump would probably run it himself if he could.
And that'll be that won't be in too long a distance. No, we're just bringing the ships up. We got a lot of ships, so we're bringing them up. We think that numerous countries are going to be helping us with this also, but we're putting on a complete blockade. We're not going to let Iran make money on selling oil to people that they like and not people that they don't like or whatever it is.
That's
it's
crazy.
Be all or none. And
so at least they're willing to work with some people, and at least they're willing to sell it to you if they don't like you at a fee. Trump was just like, you know what? None of you. Both of these plans suck for planet Earth. But who is the biggest extorter of those two? Not hard to see.
that's the way it is. And it'll be, you saw what we did with Venezuela. It'll be something very similar to that, but at a higher level.
And
Just
Mr.
stealing
President,
oil
you say
from
that
everyone.
there may be a mine out there somewhere that nobody knows about but them, and this is world extortion. How will the United States ensure that the mines are removed in the Strait of Hormuz?
Good question, Fox
So we
Lady.
have minesweepers there now. We have highly sophisticated underwater minesweepers, which are the latest and the greatest. But we're also bringing in more traditional minesweepers. And so I understand is the UK and a couple of other countries are sending.
I did see that from the
minesweepers. A lot of
UK.
countries don't have
That's wild if
minesweepers.
they
Think of
get
it.
involved.
They had 28 mine droppers. What country has 28 mine droppers? 28 boats to drop mines. What country? They've been completely obliterated. They no longer. So we knocked out their entire Navy. They have 158 ships.
We've still
They
got
have
mine
28
droppers,
mine
apparently.
droppers. Every single one of them is at the bottom of the sea. Can you believe it? We did that in 4 days. Their Air Force is gone. Their if you look, anti-aircraft. All of their radars out. Anti-aircraft.
Not true.
Their defensive program is all knocked out. They don't have anything. And you know the sad part is,
They've got
I
enough.
can't say this is for you.
Sadly, they
We
do.
knocked out everything, including their leaders. Their military's gone. Everything's gone. Their
And yet they're
missiles
still
are down
fighting.
to a trickle by comparison. You know, we knocked out thousands of missiles. We knocked out hundreds of places where the missiles are built, different parts. They're pretty much gone. Probably they say 85, 82%, 85%.
No one's actually
Who
saying
knows
that.
what it is, but we knocked them out. We knocked out where they make the drone.
In fact, I think the figures on this recently were, what was it? Current estimates of Iran remaining missile reserve. Let's have a look. Let's try percentage. That's a bad Google search. So some reports indicating that they've still got over 1,000 to 1,500 long to medium. So sources indicate while up to 70% of launches are out of commission, the deep buried inventory remains intact. So there's that. Okay. So it is a decent chunk that they've got. But the thing is, you don't need that much, do you, to be able to hit a boat off the coast? And I think that's the genuine threat. Is anyone who's down there trying to do this and enact this, boats are going to get sunk. And that's the spark. It's what we're all so terrified of. Anyone with logic and reason understands the level of danger that is presented to the world in this moment if he does this. And if other countries come and help, right, this is where it kicks off. A boat is going to be sunk. Maybe it's American. Maybe it's British. God, I hope it's not Australian. But again, our lives don't matter more than others. But ultimately, gonna happen. Now, that trigger and knock-on effect from there could be absolutely insane, and the Franz Ferdinand spark that begins World War II. Three. God, I'm still living in the past. I can't even talk. This is how frustrated I am with the situation from the Americans here and the Israelis and the Iranians. I mean, they made some concessions, but obviously this is a hard line for America. They want nukes or nothing, even though, again, there's no evidence that they have what they're being accused of having.
Drones, and the drones are less effective now. And also we have new machinery to kill the drones. You saw that. The computerized bullets, they call it. And also
computerized
lasers.
bullets.
A laser melts the drone. It's a beautiful thing to see.
Oh, we get
So have a lot of
lasers?
stuff. But think of it. We win this thing conclusively. Even yesterday, they were saying, no, it was a complete obliteration. And when you read
Who
the
said
New York
that?
Times, you
You
think
did.
they're doing well. oh, they're fighting very hard. It wasn't a hard battle. This was a very easy battle militarily. But when somebody says, you know, we're going to drop a mine in the middle of the Strait of Hormuz, not much you can do to persuade a ship owner that has $1 billion ship that we're going to take a trip up the strait.
Obviously.
Now, yesterday, you probably saw, we sent 2 highly sophisticated, beautiful, brand new destroyers right through the middle of the strait, and nobody did anything to us because what we do is we follow the weapon back, so it follows back and it knocks out the people on the other
He's
side.
talking about the
Literally
drone.
within 3 minutes, they're knocked out.
He's talking about the drone that came
technology
at
is
him.
unbelievable, but we don't know whether or not they do, whether or not they put mines. They didn't talk about it yesterday. My inclination is to have a few. And I will tell you, it was a good meeting yesterday, really a good meeting, except for one problem. And it's 95%. They want to have nuclear weapons. It's not going to happen.
And this is a key.
Again, though, like they say that they tried everything and they tried to negotiate really hard. It was one round of negotiations. It might be 21 hours, but then just instead of going back, okay, well, we didn't have an agreement. Let's come back tomorrow. There's still 10 days left on the ceasefire. Let's keep going at this because we all want peace here. Like we all want the best thing for the planet. We all want the best thing for our people in both countries. But that's not what they want, right? One country wants this war to keep going for as long as possible to destabilize the region and land grab as much as possible. And the other country that is on this side of the aggression wants to make a hell of a lot of money. That's basically where we're at. And by continuing the war, you get to do both of those things. Now, when I say America makes money, I should have been a little bit more clear here. Joe Public America is about to get pegged, right? No lube, hard in, no consent. You are all going to suffer the same way that the rest of us will with the economy, with the price of everything going up and availability of stuff. You know, a lot of your fertilizer is imported too. This will hit you. But the elite class of America, the military industrial complex, the oil industry, the, you know, whatever cabal of elite billionaires that manipulate the stock markets for maximum profit, they're all going to win. We're going to see another dramatic upward shift of wealth away from the average person on this planet to the elites. That's what this is going to do if he enacts this plan. Again, praying for the taco, but we will see on Monday, I suppose.
Point, Mr. President, for those people out there who have not been following it as closely, can you explain to those people why it was critical for the United States to go into Iran? Can you articulate what was behind that
Good job,
move
Fox Lady.
that was so important for the U.S. to go into Iran?
Sorry, Maria, I'm going to give her respect for
easy.
now.
The easiest question you've asked me so far. They can't have nuclear weapons. They have nuclear. They want to enrich what they have. They want to enrich more. As you know, we knocked out with the B-2 bombers. Had we not knocked that out, they would have had a nuclear weapon within 1 month after
Say
we knocked
2 weeks.
out.
Say 2 weeks the same way that a certain person has been saying this for the last 30 years. They're 2 weeks away. They're a month away. It's imminent. My God, they've got them, right? No evidence. How have we not learned the lesson as allies and friends of America that when America tells you that a country has weapons of mass destruction and if we don't intervene now, the whole world will suffer, only to reveal that was a lie? How have we not learned this lesson? Show me the proof. At least during, was it Rumsfeld? I can't remember who was the Secretary of Defense back then, before it was Secretary of War. They had the picture. They had the picture of, there they are. There's the bombs. They're right there. We can see them. We're going to bomb. That was a very bad Bush, by the way.
In other words, had the B-2s, those beautiful B-2 bombers, totally obliterated their 3 sites. They have 3 sites.
If they're totally obliterated, why are you there?
And they are now deep in the earth with, you know, tons of rock. Now, that material should be gotten, but we have cameras on it. We have satellites with Space Force. That was one of my beauties, Space Force. So important. But we're watching those. We're watching every single aspect of that area. They can't move without us knowing exactly what's going on. But it's deep down, and
The expression on her face is classic. She's like, huh?
an amazing
At the moment, you're
attack.
telling us why
Had
we
we
shouldn't
not
go.
done that, they would have had, within 1 month from that date, they would have had a nuclear weapon.
Right.
If they had a nuclear weapon, they would have used it on Israel and the Middle East. Look, they went
No
after
evidence of that.
5
Israel, maybe.
countries that were sort of neutral, I guess. I don't know how friendly they were, but they weren't in the line of attack. They dropped on UAE probably 1,800 missiles. They dropped on Saudi Arabia a lot, and they dropped.
Oh, they just woke up and decided to do that one day, did they? There was no proactive missions from America, and they were hitting American bases. Like, the context matters here, right? Yes, towards the end of this conflict, there have been absolutely attacks on infrastructure of the UAE that are civilian in nature as retaliatory attacks. And I condemn them all. I think it's abhorrent, and I think the people of the Gulf deserve far better than that. And the Iranians should not have done it. But from a logical, purely cold logical standpoint, I can understand that if you can't hit American soil from where you are while they're absolutely pumping you, you have to hit the Americans where you can find them. And unfortunately for those regions, they'd made the agreements. That's where the Americans were. I'm not saying it's right. I don't think it's right. But that is unfortunately where we are.
On Qatar a lot. They dropped on Bahrain. They went crazy, and everyone was surprised. Actually, it was good for us because they all joined us immediately. You know, at some point. I mean, they're either going to be petrified or they're going to join. They all joined, and they've been very helpful. All of these countries have been great, and Kuwait.
And this is the key point that I was getting to, and the reason that you feel they cannot have a nuclear weapon because they will use it. And
I want to say there, by the way, that his whole set of why he had to go in now, he completely debunked his own statement. Did you hear what I heard? He said, well, we completely obliterated it last year, but it's buried under a ton of rock. And we're watching it. We're making sure they're not getting to it. Well, already that part is a contradiction in itself. Is it completely obliterated or is it buried deep underground? One of those two. Either way, none of those things sound like a reason for you to be there today in April 2026. Does it? Right? So that was the question that she asked him. He gave no justification for why they should be there right now, this month.
that's what I wanted you to
I think they'd
explain to
use
the
it, yeah.
audience.
Well, she's going to hold him to account.
I think they would use it, and they'd start with Israel, and one weapon would, do damage like nobody's ever seen. Wipe it out.
True.
Conceivably, big one.
That's
Now,
true.
Wipe it out. They don't need more than one. And then they go after the Middle East, and then they'd eventually come here, okay? And we're not letting them come here, and we're not going to let them. We have great allies over there. I'll tell you, those 5 countries, look at the Israeli relationship. Look at the incredible partnership we have on this. And, as Bibi Netanyahu said, we're the...
Do you know what? Let's look at that relationship as closely as possible, right? Right down to every email, right down to recordings of every conversation, finding out exactly why this relationship, despite it being so far away in so many ways from America's best interest, right? Most of what you guys have done for this country over the past several decades have not been for the beneficial and growth of your own country. Many of the terrorist organizations that exist on planet Earth right now that have hostilities towards the United States of America was in wars that significantly benefited that country and not yours. You have allowed them to prosper. And a lot of people talk about the billions of dollars that America sends over to basically, fund them, the weapons that they provide them. But no one actually counts the trillions of dollars that you guys have spent on wars that are ultimately very beneficial to them, but have not been very beneficial for you. You have record debt in ways that you have never had before. You are paying trillions now in interest payments only going forward. You have now had your president ask for $1.5 trillion, right? The largest military budget ever requested in American history, in a time that you can't afford it, in a time where your healthcare has been stripped further away, your insurance has been stripped further away, your cost of living is further and further away from being realistic and achievable by an average citizen than ever before. Your house prices have gone nuts. The ability for an American to buy a house is ridiculous. And this is the time that they're choosing to invest trillions of dollars into this. Who benefits from this? Is it you, average Joe America? Or is it Trump? Definitely Trump. Is it the oil guys? Definitely those guys. The military industrial complex? You betcha. But it's not America that's benefiting the most, is it? It's really not.
We're the big brother and they're the small brother. And, you know, it's been a very effective team. What we've done literally in a matter of days, within 3-4 days, Iran essentially was wiped out. And it's so sad, though, when the press says they're fighting bravely. They're not fighting bravely. They have no anti-aircraft. We fly over there at will, can take out anything we want. As you know, last week I said we're going to strongly consider knocking out their power plants and the rest of their bridges. We took down their big bridge, but we just did that because...
By the way, that civilian bridge that they took out, I've been looking at that a bit closer. It's not completely open yet, and it is a civilian-only bridge, right? So it wasn't operating at full capacity, thank God, because ultimately the civilian deaths that would have been involved if that bridge had been full would have been insane. But to just blow it up and basically say, well, we did what we had to, is crazy.
We were having good discussions, and they go to the press. They're very good with public relations, much better with public relations than they are at fighting.
They're very good with PR. That's 100% true.
President Trump said it's okay for us to have a nuclear weapon when I never even spoke to him. And by the way, that would be the only thing I would never say to them. And they know that.
Right.
And then the New York Times, which is a fake paper. It's just a fake. You just believe the opposite.
Didn't he just praise the New York Times like 10 minutes ago? I swear to God, he said that they said something nice about him. So then they were great in that moment, but now they're the failing.
So sad when you look at CNN, the New York Times, ABC fake news.
I mean, I don't disagree.
NBC
This is all fake news,
When you look at this
Fox.
stuff, it's
on
so
both
sad
sides
to
of
see it.
politics.
I mean, they report things that they know are false. It's almost treasonous, actually, if you want to really know the truth.
This is the language from him and the IDF and Netanyahu as well. If you criticize the regime, you're a traitor. Traitors get death, right? This language, this escalatory language, right? These guys want to be dictators so goddamn badly, right? I actually feel bad. Not bad. What do I want to say here? Shame, regret, guilt? I'm not sure. When everyone said that Trump was going to be kind of what he's becoming now, I very naively said, I think you're being dramatic because the American framework, as far as I understood, from Constitution up, from guardrails in Congress, that even if he tried getting anywhere close to what they were accusing him of, being with this dramatic language of he'll be a dictator, he'll be this. I very foolishly believe that there was no way that was even possible in America, that if he decided to become a complete unhinged lunatic, that he could achieve any of that. But the truth is, he has the ability to fire every voice that disagrees with him, and he has done so. Like, they're cleaning house in the Department of War as we speak. They're firing military generals with decades of warfighting experience because they're not giving them the news that they want to hear. And they're reportedly, refusing to commit some of these actions that they're asked to do, like hitting some of the power plants. And they're saying, Mr. President Trump, we shouldn't do that. Or Secretary Hegseth, we shouldn't do that. So they're firing them. And if you get rid of everyone that says no, and the only people that can vote on these things are the ones that are going to tell you what you want, that's basically how we set up a dictator, right? I'm going to be really fascinated to see if this is still kicking on in November, whether you guys have elections this year, right? Or whether somehow there are all these exceptions made that, very, very heavily biased towards Trump. It's going to be fascinating to watch.
It's almost treasonous, but
treasonous.
If you're reading the New York Times exclusively and their circulation, by the way, is way
Do not
down.
question
It's way
the
down.
king.
I'm proud to report that. But if you're reading the New York Times exclusively, you would say that they are doing great in the war.
Mr. President,
They're doing terribly.
I want to ask you about
The only
that.
thing they have is the ability to say, well, we may have...
Do you know what? I'm
lines.
actually
And
really
if
liking
you
the
have
way
a-
that she
if you have
picks
a
her
chip, who
moments
wants
to
take a chance? You're
pick
not
Trump
gonna
up.
take a chance.
I haven't
Mr.
seen
President,
much
I
from
wanna
her
ask you about that
before,
because you put out a tweet.
but I don't mind her
and
interview
it
style.
really
I
gripped
actually
the
quite like
nation
it.
a week ago when we were all waiting and watching for the United States' next move should the Iranians not open the Strait of Hormuz. And you wrote this on Truth Social.
She's gonna hold him to account.
Civilization will die tonight. never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have a complete and total
Bear in mind, I know
change
she's
where
probably
different,
done
smarter,
dark
less
stuff outside of
radicalized,
this, but this is interesting.
minds prevail. Maybe something wonderful can happen. Mr. President, you were criticized for this tweet because you said a whole civilization will die tonight. What do you want to say about
Good
that?
reporter.
And what can you tell us about next steps here? Are you planning
Well, I'm
further
fine with
destruction?
What's he going to say about this?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. That statement brought them to the table, with the exception of the one thing, which I believe
No,
that
it
they're
didn't.
going to give up on. I believe they're going to give up on that pretty soon, to be honest, because it's not going to work. We actually thought we had them, and then all of a sudden they said, no, we want. So, but I believe, no. And when I say that, but remember, what do they say to us? For years, I've had to listen to them say, death to America, right? They say, death to America, death to Israel, America, the Satan.
And yet they all admit, Trump included in the last couple of weeks, say, well, all presidents have been threatening to take out Iran for decades now, right? We've been threatening to take him out for ages, but I'm the only one to go and do it. So it's so hypocritical to say, well, they said death to America. They didn't do it. They didn't enact any strikes on your soil, despite the fact that if we go back over the last 80 years, the amount of attacks on Iranian soil, Iranian proxies, Iranian allies by the Americans, numbers in double digits, right? But yet Iranians have never hit their soil. You could argue by limited terror attacks that maybe they have. But again, some of those links are relatively tenuous. In region, sure, there's definitely been American deaths at the hands of Iranians, basically fighting back against American incursion. But it is the definition of hypocrisy to say, well, we've had to sit there and listen as they threaten death to us when you've been threatening them with death for equally as long, right? So let's call a spade a spade. Let's say that if you're going to say that language is wrong, it's wrong when you do it too.
Will destroy America, death to America. Now, does anybody ever complain to you when they say that? I think that's a big step worse.
Of course
death
they do.
to America. So they're allowed to say death to America. And what I'm referring to is, when I talk about civilization, it'll be much different because their military will be totally gone. It's pretty much gone now. But their military, look at their leadership. We have had regime change because the people we dealt with yesterday were, frankly, very smart, very sharp, very good, very good. I think they were smarter than the people from before, Khomeini and that group. Because look what it got them. Look what all of their antics were spending they spent all their money on weapons. We've destroyed most of those weapons.
They actually do not have to spend anywhere near as much as the Americans because they knew that this day would come. So they didn't re-up on their Navy. They didn't re-up on their Air Force. They went down the cheap, inexpensive route of the modern Ukrainian style of guerrilla warfare, which is drones and missiles, which are super cheap to make, as are the launchers, as a matter of fact. So, to say they've spent trillions, they've spent far less. And I would argue that what they have lost so far, if you put that up, and again, I'm basing this on absolutely no information other than just some rough maths in my head on what reporting we've seen of the cost of interceptor missiles, Patriots, Tomahawks, the $400 million worth of equipment that has been downed in these rescue missions. You would have to assume that the US has spent far more on this war so far than the Iranians. And it is going to keep costing America that every second that they are there.
But, when I say about a civilization, it really has changed. It really has. But think of it. They're allowed to say death to America, death to this, death to... And I make one statement, they say, oh, such a big deal. Let me tell you, that statement got them to the bargaining table, and they haven't left.
See, I don't think so because, they had the opportunity to negotiate these things at the start. They were negotiating it, and Trump blew them up. He did the same thing last year. He did them this year. And then again, basically went back to the table and pushed the hard line, the red line, even further. And they said no. So here we are again.
They haven't left the bargaining table. I predict they come back and they give us everything we want. And I told my people, I want everything. I don't want 90%. I don't want 95%. I told them, I want everything.
Well, and what they
have
want...
no cards, Maria.
Yep.
They have no cards. Their Navy is gone.
You notice that he did not answer so far the civilization comment. Like, realistically, if you hear what he said so far, he said that we've already wiped out their military. So if he's threatening to end their civilization, what's left if there's no military? Civilian, right? So, I mean, unless he explains further from this particular point in time, he's basically saying that, yeah, I said what I said. I'm going to end their civilization. And that means Iran, and that means civilians too, right? Unless he corrects her right now, he's ducked that question.
Their Air Force is gone, totally gone. They have nothing. They have no ships. 158 ships are at the bottom of the sea. Good ones, new. The Soleimani, they had one called the Soleimani, was taken out by one of our tiger sharks, by one of our rapidly moving submarines. It's amazing. Our military is so good. Do you know our military is a 94% approval rating now?
Well,
Congress has a 14%. The media has a 12%. When I started, the media had a 92% approval rating. Now they're down to 14%.
Wow.
And I'm very proud of it
These
because
polls,
they're very
man.
dishonest.
Mr.
How much
President,
time has he
I
spent
see
reading
what
polls?
just took place in terms of our NATO allies pushing back and not supporting you and the
this is where we
United
get to how
States.
it's actually
and I
our
see what
fault.
has happened with our
Let's
Gulf
see.
allies in the Middle East who do not want a bully in the Middle East any longer. Are you expecting those Gulf allies to help you in this blockade in the Strait of Hormuz?
Oh, yeah.
What
sure.
other countries are going to
they've
join
already
that?
Started. So the Gulf states, now you could say they're much closer, so maybe they have to do it. But, you know, they also could stay out. But they made
If
a
they
mistake
get in
when
there,
they started
dead.
lobbing missiles out.
I mean,
And here's the
my
good
God,
thing. The
it's
Gulf
so hard
states,
to know what
they
to
are
do.
rich and they have a lot of Patriots. Our Patriot missile, which is an anti-missile missile, and it's unbelievable. They fired at us one day at a certain asset that we have, namely the aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln, one of the beauties of the world, one of the great beauties of the world.
My God.
They fired 101 missiles out of 100. These things are going 2,000.
You have to admit, the Donald Trump of 2016 is not the Donald Trump of 2026. The way that he drifts in and out of these little anecdotes of this, well, this one time they shot some missiles and we shot even more down. They had nothing. We did it. And it's like, where was the question again? That's what he's doing right now. So you don't ask him about that, but that's where he's gone, right? It's what do you expect from the Gulf countries? And I mean, the Gulf countries, like they're in the most impossible situation right now. They're backed the US to the hilt. They expected their protection. Hasn't panned out. America's actually pulled defensive infrastructure away from them the second that their bases were destroyed, and there was no real benefit for America to be able to launch from there anymore. Now they're saying, well, they're going to get involved and do it themselves. The second that they commit their military, right, any of those countries, to this conflict actively, there is no way Iran doesn't bomb them into hell. That's when they will stop being discriminatory in their targets on those Gulf nations. But then again, it's so hard to know what the right thing is to do. There's some of the countries I feel for the most is that they've backed the wrong horse in America, and they are paying the ultimate price for it. Like, even if the war ends tomorrow, the financial prosperity of that region, I'm terrified for. I really am. And then the individuals that live there.
More than 2,000 miles an hour. And out of 101 missiles, 101 were shot down like nothing and are now at the bottom of the sea, the remnants of them. Think of it, 101 missiles shot. In a short period of time, all 101 were knocked out. So we have the greatest military equipment. We have the greatest people. We have the strongest military in the world. By
Wait, what
far.
was the
Everybody
question
sees it,
again?
whether it's Venezuela or what we've done with Iran. And when I read, you know, the fake news talking about how well Iran's doing, they're not doing well at all. They're getting killed. I could take out Iran in one day.
Why didn't you?
Take down, in 1 hour, I could have their entire energy, everything, every one of their plants, their electric generating plants, which is a big deal.
War crime.
And I hate to do it because if I do it, it takes you 10 years to rebuild. They'll never be able to rebuild it. And the other thing you take out are the bridges. I took out one
War crime.
just to show them because they went public with a statement that wasn't true. They admitted it. I say, I'm going to take out a bridge. And I took out a bridge. And that was the end of that. Now they've been really behaving quite well. But in 1/2 of a day, they wouldn't have one bridge standing. They wouldn't have one electric generating plant standing.
Just
And
confirming
they're
you
back
also
in the
wipe them
Stone
out.
Ages. I'd rather not do that. But I do believe they're going to come to the table on this because Nobody can be so
She's
stupid
frustrated that he's not
as to
answering it.
say
You can see she's
that we
itching
wanna
to
have
holding
nuclear
to
weapons
the original
and
question.
They have no cards. They have no cards whatsoever.
So if they do not give up that effort, is that the plan? Will you further destruct Iran?
Yeah, I
Good
will.
question.
If they don't give that plan up,
Jesus.
yeah. I'm not in huge hurry. What we want to do is we'll open up the strait. But the ships
Not
are
in a,
coming
yeah.
up to the...
Why would you be in a hurry? You're in a position to try and make yourself as profitable as possible. Why would you be in a hurry while the rest of the planet burns, Donald? Why would you care?
United States.
Let's talk about that.
I've been inviting everybody. It's
Let's
pretty
talk
good.
about
Let's
that.
talk about that,
They're,
Mr. President, because
yeah.
you referred to a post that hundreds of super tankers are headed to the Gulf of America to buy oil and gas from the U.S. What can you tell us about that, sir?
Well, I can tell you that it used to be called the Gulf of Mexico. That's what I can tell you. Now it's called the Gulf
so
of America
gross.
because of me. One of my little things that I did, one of my little
One of my little
sidelines.
things.
And it's a great honor. People are so happy. You go to Louisiana, you go to Florida, you go to these states, Texas. They're so honored by it.
I imagine
used
that
to
those
say,
three probably
why-
would.
Why is that the Gulf of Mexico when we have 93% of the frontage? And, it fronts 93% on the United States.
Do you... it is so hard to not become a full-blown anti-Trumper at this point, right? Do you hear it? Like, I mean, please, like, let's be reasonable people together, MAGA. Anyone that's MAGA that made it this far, I'm sure that you bailed ages ago calling me a lunatic because I'm sitting here looking at the facts and trying to be as reasonable as possible. I'm sure you bailed. But if there is a MAGA person here, let's have a real talk, okay? If you heard Biden, when he was asked questions like this, respond like that, that there's all these tankers out there where they're going to where I want them I renamed this place, people, they don't talk about it enough, that I renamed that place. Like, can we focus on the critical energy crisis that this world is facing and the billions to trillions of dollars that you plan to fleece the planet on? Can we focus on that for maybe more than 8 seconds? He didn't even make it that long. Immediately pivot into a self-aggrandizing story of delusion. How many of these answers has he actually stuck to without drifting and then forgetting where he came from? Please look at him honestly, MAGA folks. He is going down the same road of Biden. He may not be as declined as Biden was at the end, but you got real mad when they were holding that down. And then now you are doing exactly the same thing for them. So we need to make sure that there's some accountability. We need to make sure that you are applying the same standards to the current guy as you did with the past one.
Why is that the Gulf of Mexico when we have 93% of the frontage? And, it fronts 93% on the United States. I said, I think I'm going to change it to the Gulf of America. What a beautiful name. And I did. And I give a lot of credit to Google because once I filed the papers, I did it. And Google Map, once Google Map changed, did
This is
it,
definitely not the ramblings of a
it was a done
madman.
deal, but we had lawsuits, we won everything, and it's now the Gulf of America, which I'm very honored by.
But do you
I was
expect
thinking about,
super
I must
tankers?
tell you, I was thinking about calling it the Gulf of Trump, and I decided
God.
not to do it. I think maybe it was
This
the
is
way.
your guy?
I think that one maybe wouldn't have worked out. I'm not so sure. You'll have
This
to
is
tell
him?
me. But I was thinking about it's going to be called the Gulf of Trump.
Look at the look on
And
her
then I
face,
said,
just dying
That's
inside.
not going to play too well.
I
Okay,
think
go ahead.
you're
You know I'm
She's
kidding.
like, I
You
have
know
to
I'm
be a
kidding.
sycophant,
facetious.
but I don't
know
want
that,
to.
We'll
Mr.
have a
President.
headline.
But
The
what,
fake
but
news
what
will have a
about what
headline
about
tomorrow.
oil exporters? Tell me about this, because do you expect super tankers, empty super tankers, to go to the Gulf of America, to go to Louisiana, go to Texas?
Well, they're already coming. Well, Texas, they're going to go to Texas. They're going to go all along our shoreline. I mean, we have the biggest ports, and they're going to go. Remember this, and this is pretty amazing. And this is my time that when I came into office, we were third and fourth in energy and in doing exactly
What a time
this,
to
the
just
oil
try and
gas
flex on
other
anything.
things. Now
What
we're
a
bigger
weak,
than Saudi
insecure
Arabia.
man.
Look at this, and we're bigger than Saudi Arabia. Add Saudi Arabia with Russia, and add another country in there, whichever one you want. We're bigger than all of them combined. Think of that. That's all because of.
Imagine that. Imagine being Saudi Arabia right now, and the guy who has set your country on fire, who is now holding the Gulf hostage to you, your supposed ally, is sitting out here dunking on them, going, well, we're even bigger than Saudi Arabia now. It's like you're bigger than them right now because you are cutting off their arteries, right? It's so tone deaf, it's crazy.
Trump. And when Biden inherited that system, he changed it. Then he tried going back to it because the oil was going up.
How long do you guys going to blame Biden
$7,
when this guy's been in power for well over a year at this point?
We have to get rid of this nuclear threat. And people in our country have oil. People in other countries are getting hurt. One of the things that most amazes me, though, the Strait is for Japan, where they get 93% of their oil. You know that, Japan. South Korea gets 45% of its oil. These people haven't helped us. I say, are you?
You must understand, if you're an American watching this, how angry that makes the rest of us. And I get it. You know, a lot of you might be America first, and that's what matters to you. And I understand everyone has a preference for their own people. But to have it so massively at the cost of everyone else. See, what shows here in the last sentence he just said is that this is an intentional callousness. He said it. America is fine. Everyone else is going to hurt. He knows this. He's doing it deliberately because he's trying to force the rest of the world to come in and sacrifice our blood and our treasure, as the Americans keep calling it in recent interviews, more of our blood, more of our treasures for a fire that you started yet again.
You guys going to help? And, you know, we have 45,000 soldiers and 50,000, respectively, at those two places. 45 and 50,000 soldiers. We guard them and protect them. And when we want a little help, they don't help us. And when we wanted help from NATO, they don't help us.
There's only been one time where NATO articles have been activated. NATO and the rest of the allies around the world, including Australia, came running. Okay? 9/11, we came running. Iraq War, came running. Afghanistan, came running. To say that they've never shown up for you when the opposite is actually true. Name me one conflict since World War II, with the exception of Israel. Name me one conflict where America has shown up for an allies' war. Or is every conflict that's been created since World War II on that kind of scale involving allies been at the behest of America? We have come to your aid consistently. America does not have any proof in the pudding that they have come to our aid. They do not have any proof in the pudding now, less than ever, that they would come to our aid. Okay, they're pulling defensive infrastructure away from South Korea to protect their interests in Israel. They are pulling defensive artilleries, defensive structures away, defensive missile systems and batteries from the Gulf region to Israel to protect America's and Israel's interest. Right? People who are actively at risk right now from their neighbors, and they're pulling that infrastructure away. That's what America is showing the world they would do if we asked for their help.
And we pay,
let's be real about who's helped who, shall we? Based on the facts.
$1 trillion toward NATO in a very short period of time to protect them against Russia, mostly.
Yeah.
And then when we're there, and, you know, Biden, I wouldn't have done this. You wouldn't have had the Ukraine problem. Russia would have never attacked Ukraine. But
they're still doing it now. So that whole statement falls apart. What happened to the claim that 24 hours after he gets reelected that he ends the war in Russia, Ukraine? What happened to that claim? Right? It's been a heck of a long time since that. And if anything, the rest of the world and Russia is laughing at Trump with the way that he says that he could do those things. Overextended, overpromised, underdelivered.
Look, the election was rigged. You know that. I know that. Everybody knows that now.
Of course, we're going to talk about the rigged election one more time.
But under Biden, if you take a look at what happened, when he was president, that's a war that would have never happened. Russia attacking Ukraine.
How about you talk about this war?
And I ended
this one. They're in right now.
Wars, including Pakistan. You know, Pakistan was great yesterday. They were the ones that really facilitated the meeting.
Right.
But they thanked it. Every time I see them, they thank me. They say, we're going to have a war with India. And as the prime minister said very openly to everybody, between 30 to 50 million people would have been killed. And I got it ended. I said, if you guys are going to.
You, MAGA. You must hear what we hear. You must see what we see. Okay? This is the leader of your country. This is the guy who's going to send people you know and love to die. Listen to him. He is an arrogant, egotistical narcissist who cares about no one but himself, seems implicated of horrendous acts and crimes that potentially he is being blackmailed against right now, allegedly, by some reporting and some things happening in the last couple of days, to cover his own butt. He has brought no justice on the Epstein files because he's heavily implicated. He has brought the reputation of America into an incredibly tarnished, forever standing. And you back him when he would never back you. Listen to him. It is all about him and him only. He will tell you that it's for you, but watch his actions, because you can't listen to his words, because everything he talks about is self-aggrandizement. It's all about his achievements, most of which are bullshit and never happened.
Well,
and believe it or not, I got it ended because of tariffs,
Mr.
which
President,
the Supreme Court was not nice to me about.
is this all going to be enough? The blockade in the Strait, the opening up capacity in the United States
so.
for is this going to be enough to lower the price of oil and gas, sir?
Well, it's going to be eventually. It's going to be lowered. No, it might not happen initially, but
That's because it's going to go up initially because of this, you
when
dick.
This is all over, look, the stock market, the Dow hit 50,000.
The Dow. Has anyone seen the Dow right now? Of course that's what it's about, right? This degenerate Dr. Seuss. The Dow. Where is it right now? Fuck me.
It was supposed to be in 4 or 5 years. They said it won't happen during his term, but it'll be maybe 4 or 5 years. It hit 50,000 in my first year. You know it better than anybody. You cover it better than anybody. The S&P hit 7.
Does the Dow and S&P, ladies and gentlemen of America, does it line your pockets? Does it put health insurance against you? Does it enable you to buy a house? Can you afford groceries and rent this week? Does the Dow right now benefit you? Or does it benefit maybe the Epstein class and El Trumpador?
1,000 in my first year. Before my first year, you know that. And I said to myself, "Oh, here we go. I got to stop this country from having a nuclear weapon." You want to see a stock market go down? Let a couple of nuclear bombs be dropped on us, or frankly, any place else, and you'll see a stock market that goes down. So the stock market has not gone down very much at all. It's gone down a little bit, much less than I thought. And frankly, the gas has.
I wonder why. Could it possibly be that all of it is propped up, made up bullshit that enables a very limited elite class of billionaires to profit off imaginary trades and AI infrastructure and circle jerks that don't actually exist? Is it because it's a house of cards propped up by capitalist lies? Maybe.
Hasn't gone up as much as I thought. But regardless, even if it did, we have to stop this group of people from having, and again, it was worse because Khomeini was a total, radical, I'll be nice, maniac. He was a maniac.
Yeah, look, I mean, definitely not a good guy, but also against nuclear weapons.
I have the greatest economy ever. Everything's going along, and I say, I'm sorry. I tell my economic advisors, I say, I'm sorry, fellas. We're in great shape. We have to go and take a little journey down to Iran, and we have to stop them from
zero
having
evidence that America is in great
said,
economic shape.
We agree.
So do you believe the price of oil and gas will be lower before the midterm elections?
I hope so. I mean, I think so. It could be. It could be or the same, or maybe a little bit higher. But it should be around the same. I think
maybe up, maybe down, maybe somewhere the same.
They're wiped out. Man. They're wiped out.
Who could we possibly blame?
Shake. You don't get. We need a free and fair press in this country, and I don't even know why people would do that. Why would they say how wonderful they're doing militarily? They're doing.
Go on, accuse them of being traitors for reporting on the facts again.
We lost one airplane, and we captured the 2 pilots. How about we saved those 2 pilots?
Unbelievable.
Which no other country has the capability of doing. Usually when that happens, countries wave goodbye. They say, Lots of luck, because you're going deep into, and
Yeah.
you know, we went 7 hours into, it was a 7-hour flight
Yes.
to go in and get them.
Look at the frustration on
One
there.
of the roughest areas, one of the most
I'd love to hear the
dangerous
inner
areas in the world,
monologue of
and
this
we got
interviewer.
both of them.
It
They were
was
incredible, but we got both
extraordinary.
of them.
Balancing out her
And
bosses
thank God that
and trying to be a good
for
reporter.
our military, and I know that you
It must
rebuilt the
suck.
military. Now, Mr. President, before you go, it was you who did the maximum campaign against Iran in your first term. Is it going to be back to the maximum campaign? You deemed them the leading sponsor of terrorism. And I have to ask you about all of these efforts and the impact on China. What you've done in Venezuela, Iran, even your comments about Cuba. Where does that put China as you approach this meeting with Xi Jinping next month?
That's such a good point, because obviously a significant amount of oil leaves Iran and goes to China. So if Trump is effectively blockading the Strait of Hormuz, he is effectively trying to cease China's ability to get oil. And if that threatens the prosperity and the everyday Chinese, well, I was going to say individual, but they don't necessarily, from data, care that much about it. But let's say it affects China as a whole, as a leadership, as a military. There's a spark opportunity right there. Okay? They're going to say, Trump, remove the blockade. You're already hitting some of our friends. We've already said to the world this is illegal. Cut it out. But now, right, because Iran was, up until this point, allowing oil to go through to China, because they obviously had control of the Strait of Hormuz. They could let anyone they want go through. China is their friends. China is their allies. Oil was coming out. Now China is on the list of countries who are dependent on that strait that are now going to be cut off. Do you think that they are not going to take this as a threat of form of warfare? Maybe not open war, but it's certainly a declaration of economic war. Trump, and I think even Rubio a couple of days ago, was talking about how Brazil and China's current trade deal that they're talking about at the moment. Again, another country trying to diversify away from the USA, agreeing that they would only trade in Brazilian and Chinese currency, right? That they will not trade together on USD anymore. It is insane to me. It is insane. Everything about this. I'm sorry I'm so frustrated today. It's just that every time you feel like there's an opportunity for peace and there's an opportunity to make a good decision as an ally of America, that the leadership finds a new way to disappoint us and make us feel like morons for hoping that common sense and logic in this country would prevail. It's getting super hard to be friends. It really is.
Sure. Well, in the maximum campaign, you can't do any more maximum. We've wiped out their whole country, essentially. The only thing left, really, is their water, which would be very devastating to hit. I would hate
Threatening the water out?
but it's their water, their desalinization plants,
War crime.
their electric generating plants, which are very easy to hit. We could hit them. We could have them all down, and I mean down like you couldn't have.
Imagine bragging
electricity
about
for 10
your war
years,
crime
'cause it takes you
capability.
10 years
We
to
could be
build
the
those
biggest piece
plants
of shit,
from-
aren't we? Amazing,
from
because we
scratch.
could be.
You'd never
And we probably will be.
able to build them again. And the bridges. So that's really the only thing. We still have some more missile manufacturing plants. We know every one of them. We'll do that. We still have other things. But when you talk about maximum, I think, outside of those few things that are remaining, I think I pretty much maxed out. You are very, very violent and vicious. I don't want to have you against me, I'll tell you. What you say? I think we pretty much maxed out, other than those few items. And we still have some plants left. We had another week left to knock out the rest of the plants, but we were knocking them out fast. As far as China is concerned, China can send their ships to us. China can send their ships to Venezuela. We told them, buy from Venezuela. We have a lot of overcapacity. We'd sell them,
Ooh,
and we'll
that's a
probably
direct
sell
threat.
it for even less money. I have a very good relationship with President Xi of China. We work together.
I
very
don't think
well.
it's as
They're
good as you
paying us
think it is, especially not
substantial
by
money,
making
as
this
you know.
action.
We've never got
And now knowing this meeting is planned, I wonder if this timing is very deliberate. I wonder if there's some kind of advisor to Trump, and if there is, this person is a psychopath that doesn't understand the way this is going to work. To threaten China to try and get yourself into this position of strength before you go and have that meeting, it's not going to work against them, especially because they have so many cards they can play. And it's an incredible choice to do this right now when Trump is right that the American military is massive, right? It's mighty. Obviously, it's significantly larger than most other military on the planet. But they have exhausted almost the entirety of their defensive capabilities over the last 3 years by adding defensive capabilities in in Israel. They have sent a lot of that equipment over to Ukraine, and they've obviously exhausted a very significant amount of it already in this conflict in Iran, okay, both last year in October and also now. So to sit there and try and potentially pick a fight and being arrogant enough in thinking that China wouldn't dare do it right now, when the reality is now would be, if there was any time to do it, the time to stand up to the US. And the difference between China and Iran is that China could hurt America anywhere on the planet. You know, I mean, they've discussed this. We have not seen this in action, and I hope we never do. But China have made the claim that they can hit any country on planet Earth with an ICBM, that basically an intercontinental ballistic missile, that has the ability to split into dozens of individual warheads that makes these Iranian hypersonics look like infants' toys, and basically hit anywhere on planet Earth. Now, they could be bluffing, but that could absolutely be real. And every single one of those could be nuclear tipped. And we know that China does have nukes. So I feel like Chump, maybe that's what we should start calling him. So Chump is playing an incredibly dangerous game right now in assuming that no one would dare come at the US. But I don't think he sees the global picture the way that he should, right? When your allies feel threatened by you, and when they see that now more than ever, this is a threat. Every country on Earth that relies on the Strait of Hormuz, many of which are American allies today, have been threatened by Donald Trump overnight. That's what this is. This blockade is a threat. And he still now is assuming that we're all going to show up if they get attacked. If the US gets attacked with their own FAFO tactics, they assume that we're all going to come running. I don't know that that's going to be true anymore. I just don't know. We always have, except for this, which again was in a war of aggression where they've already said that they've obliterated anything, so why do they need our help? But now is not the time to pick a fight with a superpower, because you're expecting the rest of the world is going to come help. The rest of the world is pissed at you, and right now you're the bad guy. Whether you want to admit it or not, objectively to the rest of the world, the greatest threat to the rest of the planet right now, you may think Iran is the greatest threat to you, but right now a lot of the world feels like the threats to their security, their safety, keeping the lights on, keeping the food coming, is the US of A. Now is not the time to be trying to piss off China and find out if they are indeed a paper tiger or whether they are maybe a roaring lion. We actually don't know because we haven't seen them in conflict. Because while America has buried themselves in debt in fighting all these wars, China kept on grinding. China kept on investing in countries. They've been unbelievably slick in the way that they've invested and built relationships around the world. And they have more coming every day because America is pushing people there. Every single day. This is not the time I would be picking to try and say to China, what are you going to do about it? Now's not the time.
Before, I listened to this Gordon Chang. He has no idea what he's talking about. We have been very tough on China. Tough but fair. And, it's an amazing place. But I have a very good relationship with China, and they've been during my, I put tremendous tariffs. I put 100% tariff on all Chinese cars.
You want to gloat about that at this time as well?
That's destroying Europe. They're destroying Europe because they're taking away so much.
I know he's threatened 500% tariffs this morning if they provide weapons to Iran.
We don't have any Chinese cars in our country because they would have destroyed General Motors, Ford. They would have destroyed these companies if they did it. So I put 100% tariff on, and in all fairness to Biden, he allowed it to stay on, which is shocking to me.
Right.
It's one of the things, it's about the only thing he did good, but he allowed it to stay. So we don't have the problem that they have. They're having tremendous economic problems in Europe because they're being just swamped with
She's asking about
Chinese
China,
cars.
douche.
We don't have any.
But, Mr. President, just to be clear, you said the other day that any country that supports Iran and sends military equipment to Iran will face a 50% tariff if they try to bring products. Did you refer to China? Did you mean China?
Yes, and other people, but yes, China too.
Okay.
If we find that China, because I hear news reports, so a news report doesn't mean much to me because they're so fake, but I hear news reports about China giving the shoulder missiles, what's called the shoulder missile, anti-aircraft missile. I doubt they would do that because I have a
They absolutely would
relationship,
do
and
that.
I think they wouldn't do that, but maybe they did a little bit of.
China and Iran have it's a defensive pact. So they're not committed to come to each other's rescue in time of war, because obviously China would have already rocked up if that was the case. But they do have an agreement which would absolutely mean that they would do this. And it's in China's best interest to do this, because very similar to the way that Israel benefits of the America weakening the Gulf, if Iran and the Gulf can weaken America for China, that's in their best interest. They're absolutely going to do this. And again, talking about hypocrisy, say what you will about which side you're on for Ukraine or Russia. That's exactly what America has been doing. I mean, they're saying, well, we're going to send all this military equipment and all of this funding through to Ukraine, and we're going to allow them to basically fight a proxy war on our behalf in Russia, which Russia could turn around if they're using the same rhetoric and the same logic train, which Trump is using right now. And there is a logic train there. I mean, if China provides assets to Iran to help them shoot down American stuff, that theoretically is a soft declaration of war via that channel. But that is exactly what America has done. I mean, they're effectively fighting a proxy war against Russia right now. It's exactly the same thing. So again, hypocritical. When they do it, it's evil. When they do it, it's wrong. We should punish them to the full extent of our ability to do so. However, when it is us, absolutely fine.
The beginning, but I don't think they would anymore. No. But if we catch them doing that, they get a 50% tariff, which is a staggering.
That's nothing really,
that's a
considering.
staggering amount.
And did you want to say anything about our NATO allies in terms of what comes next for them, given that, I mean, is it time for them to call Iran the leading state sponsor of terrorism? And what are you going to do because they did not help in this effort?
Well, NATO is shameful. I mean, I didn't go wild at it. We didn't need any help. I would actually say,
really?
If you want to help,
then
great.
why
If
still
you don't
asking?
want to help, that's okay. And they said, oh, well, would rather not, sir, would rather not. They weren't there for us, If I would have done it with force, maybe I could have gotten them to come in, but they would have come in very big. Really?
Maybe if you threatened it with force? Again, how many threats do you want to make to your allies?
And they would have stayed way behind. No, I'm very disappointed. I mean, look at the United Kingdom. I love the United Kingdom. My mother was, as you know, born in Scotland, and love it. But Mr. Starmer, PM Starmer, said, we'll send the equipment after the war is over. I said, you don't need equipment when the war is over. You need the equipment before the war starts or during the war. He said, no, we'll send it after. He made a public statement that we will send equipment after the war is over. It was that will, that's a Neville Chamberlain type statement. And Germany, the same thing. He said, we didn't start this. Well, we helped them with Ukraine. It would have never happened if I was president, by the way. We would have had the problem with Russia and Ukraine.
It would have.
We had an incompetent president. But Germany said, talked all about that we demand, and strong, we demand that this war stop. But most importantly, he said, we didn't start the war. Well, we didn't start the war with Ukraine, but we helped them. I mean, Biden gave them $350 billion. I'm not giving it. I sell things to NATO, and they do what they want with it. I guess they give it to Ukraine, but I sell things at full price.
Yeah.
And we sell it to NATO, and they do what they want with it. But think of it. To make that statement after we've spent $350 billion, they made a statement. The German statement was bad, but all the statements were bad. No, we have to re-examine NATO because they weren't there for us. And let me tell you, and I've said this for 25 years, they weren't there for us, and they won't be there for us.
Yeah.
They weren't there for us. This is just a military
It's so
operation.
disrespectful.
This is not a hard
So
thing
all the
for us. We are so
sacrifices
much
that
more
people have
powerful.
made
I rebuilt our
for
military in
America
the first term. I'm
under
using
NATO.
it in my second term.
Yep.
And we have the greatest military anywhere in the world. And now I was right with spending all that money on the military. We have the greatest military in the world. We have the greatest equipment in the world. And it's amazing what we've been able to do. You look at Venezuela. We're doing so well with Venezuela. Great time to have Venezuela. And by the way, Venezuela now is making more money than they've ever made before. and we're participating in those profits.
Right.
You have to
Well,
fact
Mr.
check that
President, we
later.
want to respect your time. I know how busy you are this morning, and I know that we will have.
Well, we're on the precipice. What do you think is going to happen, ladies and gents? Are we on the eve of the largest taco yet? Is this what we're going to face? Is it going to be the biggest taco ever where he backs down from this insane plan to blockade the Strait of Hormuz himself, to threaten the allies who rely on that channel after calling blockading and blocking that oil from those countries acts of evil and things that they shouldn't be done and that they shouldn't be able to profit from this, even though that is exactly what his plan is here, is to extort this planet for America's profit, to try and strain his allies to the point where they are either forced to submit and help him in the Strait of Hormuz, or to basically walk away from him entirely and then have him throw out an "I told you so," even though he has manifested that destiny. Is it going to be the taco, or is it going to be the whole meal? I am genuinely nervous about this one. And I'm sorry if that came across today. I'm just so frustrated about where we are, because we got this glimmer of hope. And I guess, again, foolish and naive of me to think that the discussions last week and heading into a ceasefire conversation, that's where we would be. Maybe hoping that we'd have a positive outcome. But I should have known better when I saw the beginning of the bad faith with the attacks on Lebanon continuing, with the US sending naval destroyers up the Strait of Hormuz during the ceasefire, during the negotiations, them refusing to budge on anything, them calling it quits within 24 hours, and going to the most insane option possible as the next logical step in his clearly ever increasingly addled brain. Listening to that phone call in real time about listening to off the top of the dome Trump, who once upon a time, this was the reason that people loved him, is that he was quite sharp and able to respond very quickly, not necessarily cleverly, but certainly tactfully, where he was able to, you know, really upset people when they were coming at him on points. But to hear the level of cognitive ability that he seems to have right now, when they are at the most critical point that America has been in a very, very long time. Like, I don't know the last time I would actually say that America faced a potential for more peril than they do right now, based on the decisions that this man is making. And to listen to him jump off topic, talk about his perceived accomplishments, to accuse any journalists who are covering anything with any modicum of integrity, traitors, for daring to question El Trumpo or El Chumpo, is just disgraceful. And how far America has fallen just generally makes me sad, because I know that there are so many great Americans in that country. But when I hear things like 39% of people are supporting these actions and they genuinely think that this is what America first looks like, that this is what making America great again looks like, I just don't see the logic train, other than the fact that you have committed yourself to a team and that you cannot stand the thought of admitting that the team wasn't as great as you thought. Whereas the greatest strength of character would be to look at this objectively, look at the logic, look at the possibilities about where these decisions that are being made on your behalf with your tax dollars can take you as a country and can take you as an individual, right? Why more of you are not terrified when Hegseth and the Department of War have not only brought out a new version of the draft, which you don't just do because it's an average Wednesday, you do it because you might need to conscribe a hell of a lot of people because you need some fodder for a war. And given how far they have widened the draft field, I think I saw the other day it can be as high as 42 years old as long as they're hitting cognitive and physical tests, should terrify you, right? Even if you're on his team, right, you need to start looking objectively at what's going on. If you're just buying in and listening to Trump and only watching Fox News, you might think that you're doing great, that you are actually winning. that everything is just fine and there is no threat to America, financially, with or without this war, you are on the precipice of collapse regardless. You're in more debt than you've ever been. This is going to push you there, even if you win, because of the money invested in this war and the other expansionist quests that Trump has already declared he's interested in, Cuba being next. But I don't think it's going to go that way. I think that you're going to get stuck in this for longer than you think you are. I think that if you step over some of the international red lines and you actually commit some of the things that you've threatened in Iran against Iran or against your allies, if they break this blockade, like what if every major country, one boat, if Iran was smart, this is what I would do. If I was Iran right now, number one, I'd liberate the people. That'd be what I'd do first. But let's say in their real Iran for the IRGC, I would invite a coalition of boats tomorrow. I would go straits open, force Trump to back down. Or I would invite a coalition to say, we can break America here. And you could get one boat from every major nation on the planet and just float towards that blockade, see what happens. That's what I would encourage them to do if I was the leadership over there. Obviously, it involves a lot of sacrifice. All right, it's an insane plan, but it would force the USA into nightmare scenario number one. You either have to completely fold and show that you don't have the political power or the goodwill of the rest of the planet to cooperate with you, and that they believe that you are going to back out of that because there are someone somewhere in the middle of the US knows that this is a terrible idea, and you back down and you look like you are cowards. Well, not cowards, but you definitely look like you've got more bark than bite when it comes to the threat you've made. Or you start World War III. And Iran and all these other countries would benefit from that, especially China. And Israel and America would stand alone. I don't know where this goes. I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I'm not in the know. I'm a guy armchairing this from more than 8,000 miles away. But I can follow logic where I see it. I can see facts. This could go anywhere. I'm hoping in a couple of days' time, I'm talking about, dodged a bullet there. Trump tacoed again. I hope to God he does. Because it would be far better for him to look like he was full of it again and back down from this than to follow through. Because to follow through on this, if any countries call that bluff, we're expanding this far beyond the current borders. And in the time it takes to figure those things out, countries are going to start to power down. There are countries already on the brink. Those countries need oil. And to threaten them and say, well, if you want the oil, you can take it, but you have to take it from America, that is not a good look. Because they might have to buy that oil right now. But I bet you they are not happy about it. I bet you that they will remember, as America said to NATO, you remember when NATO wasn't there for you in your words. But I promise you, the whole planet right now is watching. And even if we end this war tomorrow, everyone is going to remember the actions of Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth, two real estate shitheads, and their partners in the Middle East, in Israel. Everyone saw it with their own eyes. Everyone heard it with their own ears. And I can tell you right now that we feel a hell of a lot of frustration and anger with you right now, and that's not going to go away. And I don't think you care. That's actually the saddest part about it, is that I think that it's like realizing the end of a relationship that you love that other person far more than they loved you, man. And that hurts. That's hard to know. But then you buck up, you go to the gym, start lifting, get some abs, eat real good, right? Then you go and start looking for the next girl, right? And the rest of the world, absolutely right now, they're on the international Tinder. Believe it, right? They're looking at their options. They're wondering if the grass is greener. So look, what do you guys think? I know it wasn't the most uplifting episode in the world, but this is a crazy point in time. And to watch this fold out the way it is just insane to me. What do you guys think? Is it going to be a taco? Is it going to be exactly what Trump is saying it's going to be, a full blockade? How would this work, right? Who wins from this? Do you support it? Are you against it? You don't have to agree with me. I'd love to hear if you disagree with me. but tell me why, specifically, with facts, not feelings, not with quotes from your chosen side, left, right, middle, Australian, American, doesn't matter. Tell me with logic why you agree or disagree. That's the discourse I want to have. Because if I'm wrong, if there's information I don't have, I want to learn more. I want to be better. I want to be smarter. So look, thank you very much for another episode of being here with me for One Nerd All Things. Please, if you did find today entertaining, informative, or otherwise, please leave a like or subscribe. Follow me anywhere where I am at Chewburger84 on all platforms, and I'll hope you will join me on the next one. Cheers.